everyone, welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Lee, and on this channel I review movies that I've watched. Before I get into anything, I wanted to say thank you for the feedback on my first video I made. I honestly didn't even think anybody would watch it. I just like talking about movies that I've watched, and I'm really glad that you guys liked it too. I also want to say that I'm not out to dissect these movies when I talk about them. I'm not a film critic or anything like that. I just like to talk about movies that I've watched and my personal opinion on them, what I thought about them, what happened in them. That's just what I like to talk about. So that's just what I'm going to talk about in these videos. And one last thing before we get into it, sorry. But I will post twice a week. One day I will post one of these. Likely Tuesday I will try to post, this video will probably not go out on Tuesday, but every Tuesday I will try to post one of these where I review a movie that I watched, and then probably Thursday or Friday I will post a recommendation video where I'm recommending shows or movies to you guys. So I hope that you like that. But anyway, all of that being said, today we are reviewing Day of Destruction. So Day of Destruction is directed by Toshiaki Toyoda. I looked him up. I've never seen anything else that he's made, but he has won some awards. So he is a recognized director. I had looked and I had never watched anything else that he had made besides Day of Destruction. So Day of Destruction, it has a very loose plot, I would say. It has a plot. It definitely has a plot that the movie follows, but the movie is jerky. It jerks you around a lot, I'm not gonna lie. This movie was not bad, per se. It wasn't bad. It was just a little hard to follow, and I paid attention, but it was a little hard to follow, and a little, I guess the best word to say is it drug on a little bit too much sometimes. But with that being said, let's get into what happened in the movie. As always, I'll be looking down here at my notes, because I took notes the entire time. Yeah, because I don't have a memory like that. Sorry. So, our movie opens up on a woman going through drawers in a house. She's taking clothes out of them and putting them on boxes and stuff. I guess she's moving out. But she finds a box in the drawer, or it's like a cloth wrapped around a box in the drawer. She unwraps the cloth off of it. Excuse me. And there's a talisman on the box of this creature that is supposed to be a wolf. She opens the box. There's more cloth in it, so she unwraps the cloth out of there, and there's a gun inside. So she takes the gun out, and she's not very afraid of it. In case you weren't aware of this, Japan is not allowed to have guns. Nobody's allowed to have guns. It's not like America where you can just go in somewhere and be like, I want a gun, and they give it to you. Guns are illegal to own here in Japan. And so I am surprised she's not a little bit more shocked by the fact that there's a gun in her drawer, but whatever. She takes it out, she's examining it. Then the camera pans away from her to a wall in the house that has a lot of these talismans on it that have the wolf creature on it. And then we get our first title card. I say our first title card because in this movie, there are 3 different times that we get a title card, which I was like, what is happening? But anyway, we get our first title card. But then after the title card, we get a shot of a shrine with a bunch of tiny little men statues in it. The camera slowly pans out from the statue of the men, pans out and then up to the sky for like 30 seconds. It was quite a long shot of just the sky. But then the camera cuts to a disheveled looking man walking through the forest. He has like a robe on, and a sword hanging off his hip. He looks like a samurai, but like not like fully decked out. You know, samurai had like the armor on and stuff. He looks like a disheveled samurai, and he's just walking through the woods. This movie is beautiful, I want to say. This shot of him walking through the woods that he is walking through, is gorgeous. This entire movie is shot so beautifully. It's one of its strengths. Like, it's a gorgeous movie. Anyways, we see a close shot of these 2 statues they look like wolves. They're supposed to be wolves. And then we see, as they pan out, there are steps leading up to a shrine. So steps going through a torii gate. This is a torii gate, if you were unaware. It's the gate that is, or there's multiple of them that are in shrines here in Japan. It's like the entranceway into a shrine. But we see a torii gate and then steps leading all the way up a mountain, like a lot of steps. And he walks through the torii gate and he walks up the steps. Then we see, once he gets up the steps, he stands there and he's staring, and there's another man who has like a straw hat on, who's also dressed pretty similarly, has a sword on his hip, has the robe on, and he's holding a pair of like dirty gloves. He looks at the disheveled samurai man, which I'm gonna save you guys a headache and go ahead and tell you that the disheveled man, his name is Teppei. We learn his name way later. I would say 25-ish minutes later into the movie, we learn his name, but I'm gonna save you guys the headache because I care and tell you guys that his name is Teppei. Teppei stares at this man with the straw hat on, and the straw hat man stares back at him, and he's holding these pair of dirty gloves. And then we see another man dressed the same way walks over to them, and he also has a sword on his hip, and he's also dressed the same way. And then another one dressed the same way emerges from a separate torii gate. Stick with me here, I know. I was just as confused as you are. From a separate torii gate, and this one was gorgeous. Looks a lot younger than the rest of them, but he's dressed the same way. And then he has a hairpin that's like attached to a cloth, and he just like throws it down on the ground. And then all 4 of these men stand in like a circle in the shrine. They stand in a little circle. So then the camera abruptly cuts to a lot of these men that have the robes and the swords, running through the shrine and like down the hill. They're yelling a lot. They're not saying anything. Like maybe they're saying a couple words, but like they're mostly just yelling, and they're carrying bamboo spears. And this scene is pretty long. I'd also like to note that at this point we're about 10 minutes into the movie and there has been 0 dialogue. Not a single person has spoken. This is the first time we hear anybody's voice, and again, they're just yelling. So then, after we get the shot of the men yelling and running around with bamboo spears, we see a new man, another one, walk up the steep steps to the shrine. He's carrying this like colorful ball, and he again has a robe on, has a sword on his hip. He walks up to everybody and he's like smirking. I guess he's happy to see everybody. And they all kind of form this little group. But he stands right in front of Teppei. Teppei is basically our main character, I guess. There's two people I would say that are like our main characters in this, but Teppei is definitely one of them. So this new man, when he walks through the torii gates, walks straight up to Teppei in the group of people. Teppei then sees something behind the man, so he's like staring at it, which causes the man to turn around and stare at it as well. And then we get a brief shot of the ball like rolling, the colorful ball that the new man has, like rolling. I apologize if this has been confusing. I'm doing my best to not make it so confusing, but the beginning of this movie made not a lot of sense. So I am trying, but it's hard. At least I have one name that I can work off of. So the men behind Teppei also see whatever is behind the camera, whatever they're all staring at, and they start to unsheath their swords. All of them are unsheathing their swords. Like, we get a shot of like most of them unsheathing their swords and getting ready to fight whatever this unknown thing is, because we can't see it. We're all just watching, the audience is just watching the men look at it. So then, after everybody has gotten their swords ready, Teppei pulls out a gun and aims the gun at whatever is behind the camera. And this is the same gun we see the woman find in the very, very beginning of the movie that I just talked about. So this, I think, it's not really ever explained. Unless, I miss subcontext, and maybe I did. But I think this was just a flashback. I don't know. This scene is never really, like, brought up again. and like I said, it didn't really introduce anybody. Besides Teppei. I don't know. It was a beautifully shot scene, but I suppose it was a flashback, because now we're in the present day. And in the present day, we see the same woman who found the gun. She's sitting outside of her house in the beautiful weather, and she's kind of stroking the gun. She has it in her hand, and she's like stroking it and like turning it around, like looking at it, and then she aims it. And we get a shot of her finger on the trigger, like she's going to pull it, but then she just kind of pulls it back and just kind of stares at it again. And then we get another title sequence. Or another title card thing. This one has the title of the movie again, and then the actors. But this one was long. It was long, and then it has this really loud, very, very loud, like rock song playing as the title sequence goes. And then finally we get out of the title sequence and we're met with a shot of the city. It's supposed to be Tokyo. Spoiler alert! It's supposed to be Tokyo. And the rock music is still playing. It's still playing as we get a shot of the city, and we also get a shot of this man wearing the robes, and he's in a shrine that's on a rooftop that is overlooking Tokyo. The man, he's just kind of observing the city, and I do want to note now, we are about almost 20 minutes into the movie, and still there has been zero dialogue. Not a single person has spoken to another person. I was wondering what was going on. And this is not a complaint per se. I just thought that it was kind of crazy because I don't know. I don't know that I've ever watched a movie where I've been like 20 minutes in already and nobody has said a word, except for maybe A Quiet Place. But they're at least doing sign language, so they are still dialoguing, technically. And then we get a real flashback that I am sure is a flashback. And it's now, the movie's now in black and white to clearly show that this is a flashback. So the flashback starts with a shot of a mine, a coal mine, while it's snowing, and then we see this severed frozen finger on the ground. A new character walks up. You guessed it, another guy, another man. I don't know if you've ever seen the YMAX commercials. It's like, YMAX. He's in those. This man, this actor. I don't know his name. I'll put it on the screen. That's the only thing I know him from. I was like, is that the YMAX commercial guy? I'm sorry, I think he's like a pretty big actor, but that's the only thing I've ever seen him in. So that's what my mind immediately went to. Anyway, tangent over, sorry. We see him, he picks the finger up, he's like, examining it, and then he puts it back down, and he walks away from where the finger is. And we get a pretty long shot of him walking away. Like, the camera stays where the finger is, but we can see him walking, and this is like at least 2 minutes long of just him walking. So we see he walks up to the coal mine that we got the shot of, and there's a man waiting there for him. And we finally learn this new character's name. His name is Shino. Thank God we know his name, so I don't have to call him the new character man or whatever. So Shino walks up to this guy. The man confirms, oh, are you Shino? And Shino doesn't say anything. He just kind of stares at the dude. The man asks Shino why he wants to go into the mines and that there are rumors surrounding it as far as like what's inside, what's going on. Shino doesn't answer him. He just hands a packet of money over to this guy, and the camera pans and we see that this man who's about to let Shino into the mine is Tepe, the guy from earlier, the disheveled looking dude. And so he takes the money, he counts it, and then he lets Shino into the mine and shuts the door behind him. So Shino goes inside, and we get a long shot of Tepe smoking a cigarette outside of the mine, just kind of staring at nothing, probably wondering if he did the right thing, considering what Shino is about to see inside this mine. So now we see Shino walking through the mine, and he's breathing real heavy. He sounds like he has run a marathon. And I kid you not, guys, about 7 minutes, 6 or 7
or something
minutes of this sequence is just Shino walking through the mines at different angles, because sometimes it'll show you his back, and sometimes it'll show you the ceiling of the mines, and sometimes it'll show you his face while he's walking. It's so long. This movie has a lot of sequences like that, at least in the beginning, where it's like, we could have ended this scene like at least a minute ago. And I wouldn't be complaining if it held tension, you know, it would have been fine, but it wasn't holding tension. It held tension at first, and then it got to the point where it was like, okay, we need to move on. Because him walking through the mine, especially with the movie at this moment being in black and white, was like tense at first, but the fact that it went on, you know, for like 6 minutes, I was not tense anymore. I didn't care anymore. I was like, can we just get to the climax of him walking through this mine? Like, what are we doing? So anyway, eventually, he comes across this thing that, in all honesty, looks like a ball sack. It's on the ground, it's pulsing. I think it's supposed to mimic a heart, but because the movie's in black and white, it looks like a dirt-covered ball sack. So Shino finds a ball sack in the mine, and he's like ecstatic to find this thing. He's giggling, he's smirking, he's really excited. And then he's like cryptic as hell, and he's like, a monster has been born. Then he turns around and he leaves. So all of that walking for nothing. In my humble opinion, he walked for 6 or 7 minutes just to find a pulsating ball sack on the ground and then be like, oh, a monster's born, and then leave. We get a last shot of the mine while it's still snowing, and then we get our third title card. So I made a mistake earlier, I apologize. The second title card did not have the crazy rock music. The third one did. The third one has the loud, angry rock song playing in the background. So, more title card. So this title card was so long. It went on for about 6 minutes, I think. But eventually it does give way to a shot of the city again. The movie is back in color, and this guy someone snaps their fingers off screen like that. So they snap it in point, and a building in the distance explodes. And then we get the actual title of the movie, which we've already gotten once before. We get it again after the explosion, which is Day of Destruction. And we see a very long shot of this skeleton wearing like priestess or priest clothes. The camera zooms in very slowly on the skeleton in the priest clothes until we get very up in its face, and we see that his eyeballs inside of its eye sockets, even though it's a skeleton and it should be dead. Oh, so scary. So now, after that, we get a shot of a young man with very, very long, luscious, beautiful hair walking up the steps to the shrine that Teppei was at the beginning of the movie. This man is named Kenichi, so I'm going to call him that, even though it's not revealed for another couple of minutes, just so we don't get confused. So Kenichi is walking up the steps toward the shrine. He like gives a little half-hearted bow when he goes to the torii gates and walks up these steep-ass steps, and he walks to a part of the shrine that we haven't seen yet. The shrine has obviously aged. The wolf statues out front have like moss and stuff growing on them. There's just overgrowth in the shrine. So we've seen it's definitely been overgrown since the beginning of the movie. So this man gets inside of a box that's in the shrine. There's like stuff in the box, so he's like yanking it out of the box, like throwing it, and then he gets in the box, shuts it in the box, shuts it in the box locks. Whew, that's hard to say. The box locks. The box locks. And he's chilling inside there. This is what he wanted. He wanted it to lock. He's not freaking out because he's trapped in there. When he's inside, we get a shot of him laying in there, and he says something like poetic about sin and sinfulness and stuff like that. I don't actually remember exactly what he said, and I didn't write it in my notes. Just know it was like poetic. And then he has a little bell and he rings it. Then we get a couple of sequences of just him in the box. So we're seeing what's happening to him. He keeps fading in and out of consciousness, and then an earthquake strikes, which I guess awakens something in him, because he lets out this inhuman noise and then genuinely starts tweaking inside of this box. He's like rolling around, and it almost seems like he's trying to get comfortable, but he's just freaking out. And then when he finally gets some rest, he gets a vision of that skeleton dressed in the priest clothes, And this is when he reaches absolute tweaker mode. Like, he is screaming, tearing at his hair, writhing in the box, thrashing. He's doing everything. Kenichi is doing everything. Freaking out. What's happening in this scene, because I don't think it's very clear for the most part, is that the monster that has possessed Kenichi is like awakening inside of him and kind of coursing through him, and that's kind of where the vision came from, and that's why he's freaking out. So now we see Teppei, and he's driving a truck, and he passes by some rice fields, and there is a salaryman in the rice fields screaming, like also tweaking out just like Kenichi was, screaming, freaking out, and says that the monster has consumed the village and consumed their minds. He is like asking what's going on with him, what's wrong, what did he do to deserve this. He's screaming for help. All the while he's like falling into the rice fields, so he's getting really wet, and he's like standing up and like going like that, and he's got dirt all over him, and yeah, he's freaking out. Sorry, my camera died, and so it's the next day. But anyway, let's move on. So after Teppei sees this guy, this salaryman, like tweaking in the rice fields, he pulls up in his truck to the shrine, which again, we see a better shot of how much like it has grown up and like not been maintained since the beginning of the movie, when we get that like flashback or whatever it is. We see that there are men walking around the shrine. They are in like search and rescue outfits, like, you know, like they have the hats on and the jackets, you know, yeah, you're fine. So they have search and rescue outfits on, and they're looking for Kenichi. They're like yelling for him, and then Teppei walks up the steps, and as he does, a man is like, "We found Kenichi." So they all are like, "Shit, oh fuck yes." So they run to where he is in that box, and the priest of the shrine opens the box, and Kenichi's just laying in there, like clutching the bell that he rang to his like chest. And the priest checks his pulse, and he's alive, so they extract him from the box and carry him away. Anyway, yeah, we've actually started to get into the part of the movie where they actually talk more. So as they carry Kenichi down the steps of the shrine out of there, the priest watches on before he has this like horn, and he blows on it, and then he says a prayer, I guess for Kenichi's soul. So now we see Kenichi is laying in laying on a futon in this warehouse building that has a bunch of jars of fermented stuff in it, like everywhere. This old man walks over to Kenichi. This man is named Jiro, so that I don't have to keep calling him old man. He walks over to Kenichi and like makes him drink some stuff from the fermented jar, which looked awful. Felt bad for Kenichi. And then he says, he's talking to sleeping Kenichi, he's like, "You have too many earthly desires to try and mummify your body," because that's what Kenichi was trying to do in the box. He was trying to mummify himself. And so Jiro says that he had too many earthly desires to complete the process of mummification. Teppei is also at this warehouse because the camera pans and we see him sitting there. Jiro sits next to him and they start talking. Teppei says that he always saw Kenichi going up into the mountains, but he always thought that he was training, but actually he was practicing mummification. Jiro says that Kenichi was just like brutal. They would hike in the mountains together sometimes, but Kenichi would hike the mountain like 5 or 6 times a day, every day, like hike up and down it. And that he just had so much stamina, and he would pray so much. He would stand under waterfalls until he passed out. Like, he was just intense. And Jiro says whenever the epidemic hit 7 years ago, which is what they're calling this thing, the monster that was found is causing people in their village to go crazy, and that's what they are calling the epidemic. So Jiro says when the epidemic rumors started to spread 7 years ago when the monster was found, at first Kenichi didn't believe them, but then his sister fell victim to it, and then she eventually died from it. And so after that, he became obsessed with praying in the mountains. And so he would go up to the mountains and he would pray and do all that stuff that Jiro mentioned that he was doing earlier. Kenichi wanted to mummify himself so that he could come back in 5.67 million years. Jiro says that he knows something has been possessing Kenichi, but Teppei counters this by saying that almost everyone in the village is possessed. Jiro then asks Teppei if anybody has actually ever seen the monster, and Teppei says that a stranger from the city, which is Shino, the man we saw earlier in the black and white part of the movie, is the only person who has ever seen it, and nobody goes up to the mines anymore because of the earthquake, which is what awakened the monster inside of Kenichi when the box shook a little bit earlier in the movie. So Teppei leaves the warehouse and just asks Jiro to keep taking care of Kenichi and keep an eye on him. And he starts walking through this dilapidated neighborhood of the village. And we see that same salaryman, at least I think it's the same one because it's a salaryman and he's got dirt and stuff all over him. I'm pretty sure it's the same one. He is banging on this door of this house, this clearly abandoned house, and he's begging to be let into the house, and then he starts saying that he knows everybody is inside, but they won't let him in. So he's saying he knows, like, priests, politicians, like, just everybody is inside. And he's like, you bastards, let me in, like, he's cussing them out, but then he starts to get desperate, so he's like, just starting to whine and cry and beg for someone to let him in the house. The house is abandoned, though. There's nobody inside. He's just having a delusion. Teppei low-key doesn't care about this, though. He just kind of watches the guy and then just walks off. Like, Teppei won the I don't give a gaff war. Like, he does not care. So Teppei goes home and he's like working on his motorcycle that he has, and he's like revving the engine. But then he looks at the bell because he took the bell that Kenichi had, and he's looking at it, and he like rings it. He rings it 3 different times, and then he looks up, and a girl is there. And Teppei looks really surprised. He's like, "Oh, what?" And he says Natsuko, which I would assume is her name. Natsuko asks Teppei if she was calling for him, and he just goes, "Eh?" And she's like, "Well, I have to go. My brother is looking for me." And then she just points behind Teppei. So he like turns around to look, and then when he looks back, Natsuko is gone. Natsuko is dead. Jiro said that earlier, so she was just either a figment. Why is the camera doing that? I don't know if that's any better. Anyway, so either she was just a figment of Teppei's imagination, or the bell like summoned her spirit. Teppei's wife then brings him some tea, and she's like, "What's going on?" And he like just won't answer her, and she was like, "Here, just drink the tea." So then we see Kenichi has a dream about his sister. Probably happened sometime in the past, because she is at a mental health institution in Tokyo, and he's visiting her. They're on the roof, which I'm like, why are you letting mental health patients on the roof? What the fuck? anyway, they're talking and they're looking at this building in the distance that it's the same building from earlier that I was telling you about where the guy snapped his fingers like that and it blew up. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it's supposed to be the Tokyo Dome, but I'm not sure. But I think it is because Natsuko is talking about how she wants to see the Olympics because they're looking at this building in the distance, and she's like, I want to see the Olympics. And then she says, I wonder what I would do if I was in the Olympics. And Kenichi says that he'd probably do horse racing because he loves horses.
Peter, the horse is here.
He promises her that she will be able to watch the Olympics someday. And she just says, probably. And he says, no, like you will. I've been praying in the mountains every day. And she's like, Kenichi, that's not gonna work. And he was like, trust me, it'll work. And she's like, no, it won't. So then Kenichi wakes up, he's laying down, he's still laying down in Jiro's like warehouse, but he just kind of gets up, which, let me say, he has gorgeous, gorgeous hair. Gorgeous, flowing, long, beautiful hair. It like falls over his shoulder when he like gets up, and I was like, this man is beautiful. But anyway, he gets up and he just fucking leaves. He just leaves because Jiro's like nowhere to be found. So he just gets up and walks off. So Kenichi goes back to the shrine and he sits on the steps of the shrine. And there's a lot of noises going on around him. Birds, bugs, like the rustling of the leaves and in the wind. Like just a lot of noises. This movie is so beautifully shot. I know I said that earlier, but the scenery in this movie is gorgeous. It's like its main factor for me because the whole time I was like, low-key, what's going on? But I was like, at least this movie's beautiful. But then he snaps his fingers like this, that same motion that made the Tokyo Dome explode earlier. He snaps his fingers like that and all the sounds in the shrine stop. So the birds, the bugs, the wind, everything stops. So then we see Teppei driving through the town again, and now he sees another civilian having a breakdown. This time it's a woman at a grocery store, and she's carrying her groceries outside, but she's screaming in the parking lot, and she's saying about the same things that the salaryman was saying that it's a disease that's spreading to everybody and that it's this horrible town's fault that they're all mentally ill and like she doesn't know what she did to deserve this. So Teppei just kind of watches her, but then he drives off. He drives back to the shrine and runs up the steps to Kenichi. And he's like, are you okay? Let's go. Like, you shouldn't be out here. You should be resting. And so he grabs Kenichi and tries to pull him away, but Kenichi like wrenches his arm back. Teppei is like, what's wrong? Did the epidemic get you too? And Kenichi says that Teppei doesn't understand that he has actually been possessed by a demon, that Teppei has been possessed by a demon. And so Kenichi snaps his fingers one more time and Teppei passes out, like full on. Head hit the
Then my head
floor.
hit the wall.
Pow! Like he looks like you know when you could ragdoll people in Goat Simulator? That's what he looks like. So then we cut to Jiro, the old man, and he's outside of his warehouse, which, where the hell was he when Kenichi woke up? Who knows? And he's sharpening, or he's stripping bark off a piece of wood, and he starts to talk to someone who's beyond the camera, and he's like, there you are. And the camera pans and we see that it's Kenichi, and then Jiro asks Kenichi if he's actually human, and then he asks him what he's afraid of. So then Kenichi tells Jiro that he gave up on being human a long time ago. It seems like Jiro kind of knows. I mean, Jiro did say earlier that he knew Kenichi was possessed by something, but it's like he's more so talking to the monster that's possessing Kenichi more than he's talking to actual Kenichi, because he's probably like, Kenichi ain't in there anymore. So when Kenichi says that he gave up on being human a long time ago. Jiro does the little snap finger thing, and a puddle of water turns red, like blood red. He tells Kenichi that in that case, he needs to throw his body into the pond of blood. And so Kenichi walks over to it, and then he stares down inside of it, which prompts another flashback of Teppei, his wife, Kenichi, and Natsuko. Natsuko is Kenichi's sister, if you forgot already. And they're having like a barbecue, and Teppei and Kenichi are sitting next to each other, and they have a bag next to them that they've been pulling the I think the charcoal out of for the barbecue, and Kenichi pulls prayer beads out of the bag, and Teppei's confused. He's like, how did those get in there? But Kenichi's just kind of like examining them and like staring at them. But Teppei explains to Kenichi that they are prayer beads carried by the main descendants of the village, which is what Teppei and Kenichi are. They are main descendants of that village. Like their ancestors have been there for forever. And Teppei tells Kenichi that he will teach him how to use the power. And he does the like snapping motion with his finger. But Kenichi tells him that he's not strong enough. But Teppei is like, okay, well, you can keep the prayer beads. So Kenichi takes them and he wraps them around his arm, which we see he's been wearing the whole time. Like, when we first meet Kenichi, he's wearing them on his wrist, and then by the end of the movie, he's still wearing them. So then Teppei wakes up, and he's in Jiro's warehouse, laying on the floor, and he sits up really quickly and asks Jiro where Kenichi is. But Jiro says Kenichi's gone, and Teppei asks him where he could find him. And then Jiro says, well, Natsuko died in Tokyo, so there's nothing that can hold back his rage anymore. So I don't know what this means really, because I thought Natsuko was already dead, but it essentially means he went to Tokyo to enact rage upon the people in Tokyo. Teppei asks what he should do, and Jiro goes on a small tangent about how nobody in this world is truly pure or exempt from sin, and that to not be pure is basically the essence of being human. He says the only way to truly get rid of the epidemic is to lead it down the correct path away from the village. Jiro says that Teppei is no match alone for possessed Kenichi, and hands him over a robe that has the talisman wolf on it that we've been seeing throughout the entire movie. And he says to take this and use the power of the wolf and his ancestry to take Kenichi down and take the monster down. So Teppei puts it on and he runs towards his car and he leaves. So then now we're in the city again, and we see that man from earlier who was watching over the city at the rooftop shrine. He's praying to the shrine and he's warding off the epidemic, or at least he's trying to. He's saying that the epidemic has no match for the wolf and that it should be banished before he ultimately finishes and leaves the shrine. But as he's walking down the steps to leave the shrine, he passes Shino, the man who saw the monster. So he keeps walking down the steps, but Shino stops and turns around and watches him walk away, before then turning around and walking up to the shrine himself. And then we get a shot of the Shibuya Scramble, very famous place. I hate that place. Quick tangent, guys. Quick tangent. I have been to Shibuya Scramble a couple times. It is awful. Don't take your fucking picture there. It's a fucking street. I don't care if it's not a tourist spot, it's a damn street. I'm sorry, guys. But anyway, we see a shot of Shibuya Scramble and all these people walking through it, and then all of a sudden, Kenichi appears, but he is soaked in blood. His robes are soaked in blood, his face, his hair, it's soaked in blood. He is completely red. And he essentially just starts freaking out in in the Shibuya Scramble. It was really funny. It's honestly kind of a funny scene, I won't lie. Because the whole time I was thinking, these people, I don't think they're extras. I think they're literally just people walking through the Shibuya Scramble while a random man who is drenched in blood was essentially a mental health crisis in the middle of the road. Because all of the people are like staring at him and like watching very concerned, and I really do think they just went out to Shibuya Scramble and just filmed it. This movie was made in 2020, so it's like it's not as busy as it is now because nobody could go into the country because of the pandemic. So it's like I really do think they are just regular people who were like, what the fuck is going on? But anyway, I digress. I couldn't think about anything else but that when I was watching that. I thought it was so fucking funny. But anyway, he is just kind of like screaming. He is just screaming his lungs out. He's throwing his arms around. We see he's holding the prayer bead still. And then he falls on the ground and starts writhing on the ground, and he's like staining the crossing with blood. And he's just writhing. And then he gets back up and he's screaming again. This scene goes on for quite a while before he goes up to the rooftop where him and his sister had had that conversation in the mental hospital. And his sister is there waiting for him, likely a figment of his imagination. His sister, Natsuko, she asks him if he's been looking for her. He doesn't say anything, but then she says he needs to destroy the monster. He asks her where the monster is, and she points straight to him, to his chest. So then we are greeted with multiple scenes of him freaking out in Shibuya, with scenes spliced in of our some of our main characters. So Shino, Jiro, the priest samurai guy who has been up on the rooftop shrine, and Teppei, and one of them will say change, and then we'll be met with another scene of Kenichi freaking out, and then we'll be met with another scene of another character saying change. So they're all saying change. And then once Teppei says change, it zooms in on Kenichi's face as he's sitting on this rooftop and he says, I will. And it zooms into his eyeball, which this scene was honestly kind of cool, low-key. But it zooms into his eyeball, into the darkness, and we see a reflection of Kenichi and in his own eyeball before he snaps his fingers. And then the movie ends with Teppei coming up onto the rooftop, because remember, he went to go to look for Kenichi, and he doesn't find Kenichi, but he does find that half of Tokyo is now bathed in this red haze. And then the movie ends with some really loud rock music. Hell yeah. Alright, so what did I think of this movie? I liked it and I didn't like it. So it felt much like a art project. I'll be honest. Like, you know, like a abstract art project that you're not really supposed to know what's going on. Because while it does have a plot, it does. A monster is found in the mines and it causes everybody in this village to go crazy. It's very confusing and it jumps around a lot, and there's flashbacks, and I'm sorry, I did not mean to shake you. There's flashbacks and there's random things spliced in. I saw this review on it that was digging far more deeper than I will. Again, like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm not here to analyze it and dig deep and stuff. I just like sharing my opinion on a movie and telling you what I liked about it and not liked about it, and my feelings while I was watching it. That's what I'm here to do for you guys. But I do want to relay this to you. I saw this review that said the movie is really just supposed to showcase the anger that the director felt because everybody was angry during that time because it was the pandemic and you couldn't do anything and everything was shut down and everybody was mad. And I think that's probably a good interpretation of it because the movie did feel very angry sometimes because it was very loud. It was a very loud movie. Like, as far as like the music in it. The music was very, very loud. Because a lot of times in Japanese movies, especially in Japanese horror movies, the music is almost non-existent because they want you to sit with that feeling of dread, or it's very faint in the background to make you feel uneasy. But this, it's like in the forefront. It can be a very loud movie sometimes. And like all the scenes of Kenichi just losing it, props to that actor. Like the acting in this movie was phenomenal, but with all of the actors, but especially Teppei and Kenichi's actors. Like they did phenomenal, and every single time Kenichi's freaking out, like you're like, yeah, this guy is off his rocker. And he definitely seems possessed. So I would give this movie a 3 out of 5. I would give it a 3 out of 5, just because I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it as much as I was really confused and it didn't have a clear path I felt like it was trying to go down. I felt like it was just kind of an art piece, and that's okay. Like, I didn't hate it whatsoever. And like I said, this movie was beautifully shot. Like, it was just gorgeous. All the scenes in it were so beautiful. The scenes in the shrine, in the woods, it was just so beautiful. And then again, the acting was phenomenal. So I wanted to, give it an extra point for that too. But it did fall flat in some places, and I didn't always enjoy it, so it does get 2 points docked off of it. But yeah. So that was Day of Destruction. Would I recommend this movie? Yeah. Yeah, it was not a bad movie. It wasn't a great movie, but it wasn't a bad movie. I liked it. I really did, and I would recommend you watch it. I watched it on Tubi. That's where you also want to watch it, or wherever you find it. I don't know. That's where I found it. I would recommend it. I would recommend watching it. I mean, you just watch this review of it so you know what happens in it, but if you want to watch it, I would recommend it. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. If there are any movies you would like me to review, please let me know in the comments. I'll definitely review them. And also thank you so much for watching and giving me feedback in the comments. Definitely keep giving me feedback. Don't be mean because what does that do? But if you have actual nice constructive feedback, like in my last video someone said to splice my stuff up into chapters, I think that's wonderful feedback, and I'm going to try to do that for this video. But yeah, if you have any feedback to how I can make the video better, or any recommendations you want me to watch and review on this channel, please let me know. And yeah, I will see you guys next week. Bye!